everything happens all the time. We both came into this room and we didn't. My other me is in my office. My personal choice, option, by my free will, I think, is number one. A mystery that we should admit and tell widely. But I think you have free will, so I think you can decide for yourself. And but one thing, classical determinism, I think, is what people who say there is no free will are relying on. Does not fit with the undisputed facts that are demonstrated facts. Okay. I can go on, but I will stop and save the rest for discussion.
Okay. Thank you. So I'd like to give both of you a chance to do a short 5-minute rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
If you like. You don't have to.
Sure.
Alright, well, first of all, he mentioned that the Enigma unsettles physicists, that we should shut up and calculate. Well, I don't think they say that because it's the case that, you know, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain sort of situation, that they're trying to hide something. It's more like the calculations have been proven to be effective, and musing about these things leads to confusion, so just shut up about it and calculate. That's what I think. So, I mentioned that I think there's still a mystery, and we call it the measurement problem. For some reason, like Rosenblum thinks that if you deny free will, this measurement problem somehow goes away, but I don't think that. There's still a measurement problem. He showed the box pair experiment, where if you open one, you get a particle, or the marble, I guess he used. And if you open them both, you get the wavy fog cloud or something. What that's demonstrating, I think, exists, and free will has nothing to do with that. That's just, I guess, a brute fact of the world. And on top of that, Bruce is saying, because you could choose either one, somehow there's a new, or more of a quantum enigma out there. But, like I said, you should think, why couldn't a robot just pick something? Why couldn't we flip a coin and do that? The same results would come out if we chose to measure it in a certain way. So, I see no reason to even introduce free will or consciousness at all, even though it's really physics meets free will. I see no reason to introduce that, because, again, a robot could choose to do the particle or wave thing, and it would still have the same mysterious sort of measurement problem. Now, Bruce mentioned a quote from that black book where it says, observation produces the result, essentially. Well, I think physicists would agree that that's true, but like to people who are reading this book, which is tailored to non-physicists, observation doesn't mean measurement or something like that. It means looking at something with your eye. That's basically what it means. And so I think it's sloppy language, basically, to say that, to assert that in a book like this and expect people to understand the technical meaning of words like observation, when it's really a little more complicated like that than that, because a Geiger counter, it observes or measures a photon. There's no person there. And in that case, it to a layperson, that doesn't make sense, that word observation. So, again, I just think the language is sloppy there. And he mentions that by denying free will, somehow the world conspires against us. Now, in the box pair demonstration, where if you open one, it's a particle, if you open them both, it's an interference pattern of waves, or wavy fog ball, then that is what's conspiratorial in any kind of sense. Although I don't think there's a conspiracy, it's just weird. That's the way it is. Free will doesn't enter at that point. If you don't have free will, if a robot did that, the same weird stuff would show up. There's no conspiracy there. It's just by adding free will, you add a new mystery that you supposedly freely chose. The particle or wave demonstration. So I think he's adding a conspiracy by supposedly connecting free will to like this idea that the world is conspiring against us or conspiring with us, I guess in this case, to make it seem like our choices are somehow conspiratorially connected. And he says, well, maybe we're just sophisticated robots. Well, we are. We're just animals, like every other animal. We evolved. We are not, consciousness did not just, pop into humans. We're not here by divine right, as far as I can tell. And I think we are just sophisticated robots. Maybe robots with consciousness, I'm not denying that. But I don't think we're somehow the one free animal or entity in the world. Doesn't make sense to me. And he said, well, people call it zombies. That's actually not correct, because the philosophical zombie doesn't have consciousness at all, and therefore obviously no free will. But you can be a robot, or you can be a human and have consciousness but not have free will. It's conceivable to think that we are aware of things but we aren't free to choose. So basically he says, it's playing with language a lot when he says decide for yourself because you have free will. You still make choices, you still decide, but it's not free. You weigh the evidence, you're convinced by people's speeches, you think he's funny or something like that, and you make a choice. Now, so that's just another example of the language being, I guess, sloppy. It just makes it seem like free will gives us a world that is so weird. It conspires against us. You can't make choices. That's not true. You make choices, they're just determined. Your unconscious gives you these motives that you're not aware of, as Spinoza said. Or just in a physical sense, the states that came before, they cause and are sufficient to explain the things that happen after. It's pretty simple. So that's my main point here is there isn't a conspiracy going on if we deny free will. I think there's an added mystery. If you want to fit this intuition, we do have free will. He says, I know I have free will. Well, I wish I was so sure. But these intuitions, like, it does not have to mean there's a conspiracy going. It doesn't have to mean there's a conspiracy going on. And again, a robot could easily do this. A chess-playing computer makes choices. So somehow it's just a word game, I think, to say that we could have chosen the experiment another way. Well, if we did, we would have gotten a different result, just like if a robot had chosen to do the experiment a different way. We could flip a coin, and that coin would determine how we set up the experiment, and it would do that same weird stuff of making a wave pattern or a particle pattern. And that's basically it.
Okay.
Well, the book talks about the robot problem, and I admit that it's a little bit complicated, but, and of course a robot doesn't experience the quantum enigma, because the robot can't experience anything. But it's ultimately only a human experiences the free will. Do cats? Well, I don't know. Let me say, I can think of three versions of the free will issue, of free will. And maybe we're talking about